Heyo! Welcome to Paint It Plastic People. My name is Charles and I help aspiring and beginner miniature painters learn to save time and money by teaching them to paint fast and effective. And in this video we're painting the Black Psycho Ranger from Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid, The Rise of the Psycho Rangers. So let's do it to it. These are the paints I'm using to paint the Ranger. You can use whatever you have closest to this if you don't have these, and I'll make note of where you can mix some to get the same sort of effects. What's also cool is that we can use the same paint scheme with a few differences on all the Psycho Rangers, and I'll make notes in the video of when those differences come up. I'm priming the Black Psycho Ranger in black, and I recommend priming all the Psycho Rangers in black. If you don't have black, you can use white or gray. It's just you'll have to take an additional step here in a few minutes. If you didn't prime in black, then you're going to have to paint all the black areas of the Black Psycho Ranger suit black, such as his legs, his boots, his sort of midsection, anywhere where there's not a metallic area, or any sort of like wrist or knee guards that he has, or the metal on his helmet. If you primed in black, however, we can skip right on to dry brushing him. So what we're going to do is take our dark gray, in my case uniform gray, and we're going to dry brush all over the miniature. What this does is create highlights for us to use later on. It's also a time saver because highlighting up from black is really difficult, and even some higher skilled miniature painters have a tough time with this. So this will save you a lot of time, especially if you're a beginner miniature painter. First up, working from the hardest to reach areas and working our way out, we're going to be applying gold first. I think the hardest to reach area is his belt buckle. I'm using Retributor armor from Citadel. You can also apply this gold to the similar symbol on his actual weapon here, and you also want to apply gold to his neck piece. Next up, we're going to paint all the silver on him. There's these silver little buttons down under his belt buckle. There's some silver spots across his midsection as well. There's some little silver circles on his hands, and also silver on his shoulder pads as well. And as well as both ends of his weapon are also going to be painted silver. And last but not least, his mouth guard is also going to be silver. Don't worry about making any mistakes. Everything can be touched up. We're just in the base coating phase. Up next, we're doing his dark metal. It's going to be mainly across his chest piece. But then after that, we'll be doing his helmet. Be careful because not all of his helmet is covered in this dark metal. And there's also going to be some straps on his inner leg and under his butt that you can also do in this dark metal. If you don't have lead belcher, which is what I'm using, you can use another dark metal. If you don't have access to a dark metal, you can also mix in just a hint of black into your silver. Remember to use as little amount of black as you can, because you don't want to go too dark too quickly. Last up for his base coat is the white. Now the white's going to go on his gauntlets, on his knee guards, and on his belt. White can be very difficult to paint onto any miniature, and especially because we're putting white on the black, it's especially tough. If you primed in white or gray, that's going to be a little easier for you. But remember to do 2 thin coats at very least. You may need to do more to get more coverage. In my case, I needed at least 3 to get there. The differences between the Black Psycho Ranger and the other Psycho Rangers are that the little spaces in between on his gauntlets and his knee pads are naturally just going to be black, versus the other Rangers will be in their color. The other difference is going to be the dark metal that we put on him is going to be just dark metal like it is, versus the other Rangers will be in their color. So you have a couple of options here. You can paint just a flat color of whatever the Ranger's color is, or you can mix their color into a silver and then paint that on to the chest and headpiece. Or you can paint it silver, then paint that color over top of it, and that should get you a pretty good effect. You can paint silver over their chest pieces and their helmets, and then put the contrast paint of the applicable color over top of that, and that should also give you a good metallic effect. Now you can do any little touch-ups you need to do. Just go over, and anything that looks out of place, make sure you give the miniature a good looking over. Just give it a little correction here or there. If you have to dry brush any corrections on, I recommend using as small of a brush as possible for this. Make sure it's an old worn out brush. If you have a small flathead brush, those are really great for this kind of thing. But if not, don't worry about it, do your best, and then just do your touch-ups after you've dry brushed back on. For washing and shading, what we're going to do is we're going to go over basically the entire miniature in Nuln Oil. You can also use any black wash you have, such as Army Paint or Dark Tone. What this is going to do is going to really bring those dark bits down for us. This is also going to make the dry brush work we've done look like natural highlights once it dries. It'll look like it's just sitting in there and we've done a ton of work when we actually just dry brushed and put a wash on. As for the white bits, what I did was take some strong tone from Army Painter or any brown wash you have, and I recess shaded under his knee pads. We don't want to darken down the white and have to redo all the white when all we can do is just go into those recesses, apply just a little bit of shade, and then get out of there. You don't even have to do this for his gauntlets, and you just only have to do this for the little sections of his knee pads. And while you're waiting for your wash and shade to dry, a good idea is to empty out your water. We've been using a lot of metallics here, and so the water's probably getting pretty gucky. So it's a good idea to refresh it. And means you're refreshing it, hitting a like if you're enjoying this video would be really awesome. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you. And leave a comment down below of who your favorite Psycho Ranger is, who your favorite Power Ranger is, what your favorite Power Ranger season is. Personally, my favorite is Mighty Morphin. That's the first series I grew up on, and it'll always have a special place in my heart. And my favorite Ranger, of course, is Jason, the original Red Ranger. So now we're going to highlight the Ranger back up. We're going to take our base gold and just go back over the gold areas again. And then again, do again the same for the silver, and again the same for the dark metallics. You'll want to do about 3 passes of this to get the maximum brightness you can out of these paints. For the business end of his weapon, we're going to actually dry brush the metallics back on because this is a pretty intricate design, and we don't want to be sitting here highlighting each individual swirl or strand of his weapon. If you hit his hand, that's okay, just reapply a little bit of black and you're good to go. Remember, when you're doing your highlights, you don't want to go into the recesses where your wash and shades have dried off. You want to just hit up the upraised areas. Remember too, you don't have to highlight absolutely everything, such as the darkened areas like under his belt, for instance. You don't necessarily need to come back there just because you have to think of where the light would actually hit, and it wouldn't hit there. The bottom of his weapon and the bottoms of his hands and such, you don't necessarily have to highlight those back up because that's not where the light would be hitting. So to me, that just doesn't look as natural, and this will also save you just a little bit of time. But if you do want to highlight those areas, all the power to you. This next step is pretty optional. You can apply some basing effects to your miniature. For me, in this example, I'm using a technical paint from Citadel. For this paint, the more you apply it onto the base, the more of an effect you get out of it, because once it dries, it's going to crack apart and look like the ground has kind of broken up underneath of him. I believe this is to simulate the ground has sort of dehydrated and cracked apart, but for me, I like to think that his sheer power is destroying the ground beneath him. Be careful if you're using any sort of basing material to watch out for his feet. You don't want to cover his feet in that kind of stuff. If you do, it's a quick fix. Just wait for that stuff to dry out and then come back with your black paint and get his feet again. It's nothing to worry about. Our last required step is to varnish our miniature. I'm using a matte spray. You can use whatever spray finish you're looking for, whether that be a matte, satin, or gloss, but this is my choice. If you do go with a matte spray, this is going to dull down the metallics a little bit. So for things like his weapon, you may want to come back and re-dry brush that if you're not happy with the look. But if you're fine with that, like I am personally, then you can just leave it be. The last thing, which is entirely optional, and if you don't have access to this, don't worry about it, is that I like to add a little bit of this stuff called Ard Coat to their helmets. I do this for all the regular Power Rangers, and I'm doing this for all the Psycho Rangers. What Ard Coat is a gloss varnish, but it's a paint-on gloss varnish made by Citadel. What this will do is, when it dries, it'll give their helmets a sort of glossy effect that'll make it look shinier than the rest of them, which in the shows, in my opinion, it looks like their helmets are shinier than their suits are. You just want to apply this to the black areas of his helmet and try to avoid the metallics as best you can. And that's everything for painting the Black Psycho Ranger from Power Rangers Heroes of the Grid. If you enjoyed this video, leaving a like helps out. Leave a comment down below talking about your favorite Ranger, your favorite season of Power Rangers, what have you. I love to read that kind of stuff. That's awesome. If you want, you can share this with your friends, share this with your family, other people who are interested in miniature painting in general or interested in Power Rangers. If you'd like to see any more videos like this or videos about painting specific Power Rangers or other miniatures, you can leave a comment down below and let me know. I always love to hear about that kind of stuff too. And remember to get it to the table and have a good day.